What are some of the nicknames for COVID? I know there's like Rona and what are some of the
Rona,
other?
Rona, the Coco, the Vid.
The
I'm
vid.
calling I'm calling it the Minnesota State Fair 19,
No, you didn't get it from
Twin
the
Cities
fair.
19. I got it out
Because
there
that would have.
somewhere.
Although I did see you after the fair. That means you would have given it to me. I think.
If it was like growing
I didn't
yet.
kiss you on the cheek before you left, so I guess maybe I'm okay. Well, welcome to our probably going to be our shortest episode for news talking of the year. I continue to sound like a douche, but I don't sound like a out of use garbage disposal this morning. So,
No, but I sure do.
but we appreciate you
I feel like one
showing
too.
up. At least we're only doing 9 episodes today, right?
I know it couldn't be any worse. Could be
Yeah.
10.
Yeah, it could be 10. We could be talking about we could have a whole episode about the Lions, but we're not going to do that because I don't think anybody cares. But thank you so much for listening today. So this is going to be kind of a short little recap of some of the news items that came out this week before we dive into our previews for each division. So if there's any particular division that you're interested in hearing a preview about, some of them are going to be shorter than others because some of them we just don't have as much to talk about. But feel free to check out all of our previews. The AFC previews will come out on one day, and the NFC previews will come out on the next day. So just keep your eyes out for that. But we really appreciate you listening. I had two non-football things to bring up. Well, one football thing, but one non-football thing to bring up. And the first one is when you go to a restaurant and you kind of maybe have your items narrowed down to like, I may want this, this, or this. Are you compelled ever to ask the server what their recommendation is?
Every single time.
Oh my god! And we've
But
not talked about this, right? Like, there's
no,
okay.
but sometimes I do it because I truly am torn. Hold on. Before we get into that, just so that people are aware, I do have COVID. That's why we were referencing
Oh,
the Twin Cities 19 in case they didn't pick up on it. So if I sound like said garbage disposal, there's valid reason. But yes, I ask I don't want to say almost every single time, but whenever I'm divided on different things, and if it's a new restaurant. But part of it is a way for me to generate conversation with the server because that's just kind of my personality. I like to be buddy buddy, and usually they reciprocate that friendliness, and it's just an overall better dining experience.
I couldn't disagree with you more. I want the server to. I don't mind a little conversation, but bring me my food, bring me my beer, leave me alone.
Okay,
And
what's Sammy's take on this? Being a
oh, well,
server.
she gets to like narrow down to three, and then she's like, "I'm gonna ask the server." I'm like, "They're just gonna pick the most expensive one. Like, you
But
just met this person."
no, okay. I've always thought that they are going to pick the most expensive one, but I can tell you half the time that's not the case. Maybe even more than half the time it's not the case. Um, so what was Sammy's opinion when I don't know, she's not serving anymore, is she? But when she was, did she enjoy when people had asked that question?
I'm not even sure. I don't know if I asked her that. It's just to me, it's like if I go to a restaurant that someone recommended, I'll be like, hey, what's good there? Or if my friend is the server or bartender, I'll be like, hey, what do you like here? But if it's someone I met 5 minutes ago, I'm not going to ask their opinion on the menu. I'll maybe ask Sammy and be like, hey, what sounds better? But I'm not going to be like, oh, hey, random stranger that I just met 5 minutes ago that's going to be bringing me on food. What would you recommend that I get, person that works here?
Well, what you get more times than not now is because servers are so new at a lot of these restaurants that they'll say, "Well, I just started, but I hear that our burgers are really good." Um, and then what was the other one? Oh, if there's something on special, if it's hey, we got prime rib on special tonight, or we have this bacon feta stuffed chicken, or whatever. I'll usually try to go with the special, knowing that if we come back, I probably won't be able to get that again.
Well, you're also more adventurous than me because when I go to a restaurant, there's basically six things I'll order. And, it's like if I go to a restaurant and I get a burger and it's amazing, the next time I go to the restaurant, I'm gonna get a burger. Versus if Sammy finds something that she thinks is the best dish of all time, the next time she'll go to the restaurant, she'll try something different. And I'm like, why would you do that?
My grandmother has always said, when you find a restaurant and a meal you really enjoy, make sure you go and enjoy it because you never know when that restaurant's going to close or their recipes are going to change or whatever.
Exactly. Actually, we have a restaurant here that had this. They had two types of burgers, and one was like a more prime ground beef than the other. And I loved it. And one day I showed up and they got rid of that, and they just had the standard burger for the rest of ever. And I was devastated. And if I could go back and get that burger again, I would. Anyways, football podcast. Let's see. The other one I wanted to ask you because you made me chuckle on, what was that, Saturday? Is we were texting and it got brought up that you self-admitted to me that you're an annoying football fan. I disagree with you, but I want to know what your definition, because I think we were talking about a particular college team's fandom, and you said that they're annoying football fans, and then you said you are an annoying football fan, and I disagree with you. But what constitutes being an annoying football fan?
And with everything, there's levels to this. However, I don't think I'm necessarily annoying to the outside world when it comes to like being a homer to the Green Bay Packers or being a complete hater of our rivals outside of the Minnesota Vikings. I will find every petty reason to rag on them. Um, I think I'm annoying in the sense that when the Packers lose a playoff game to the San Francisco 49ers, I wear that trauma for the next 9 months of my life. And to me, that's annoying to be around. In a somewhat funny way when I say I carry that trauma around. It's not like it ruins my day-to-day life, but I like dwell on that fact of being a football fan that, oh, this happened again. And then it like ruins my next day. And I just have to imagine to be my wife, I'm an annoying piece of shit to be around when things go bad. The Joe Buck intro that's been like trending on social media, I think particularly TikTok, and it's all these people posting things that are like POV, you're sitting on your couch wrapped up in a blanket. It's 35 degrees out, you have chili in the crock pot, the holiday candles are burning and you're ready to watch more football. Michelle said when she hears that noise, she hears the sounds that bring stressful feelings to our household because there is no cuddling under warm blankets. It's me standing and pacing around the house the entire time.
See how they do that when it's like a close game, or like we'll talk about LSU here in a second. But when it's like those kind of things, I'll start standing and pacing a little bit. But if it's like halfway through the second quarter, and we're down by 10 points, it's like, all right, well, this isn't going well.
I think I usually start the game pacing. So you've seen my living room. The way the couch is, I kind of pace back and forth behind my couch. And I'll stand behind it and put my hands on the couch. And Michelle's usually just like curled up on the couch with Miller watching the game, like very content, doing what normal people do. And then, yeah, if we get to the second quarter, then I'll usually plop down on the couch for a little bit. But then kickoff comes around for the second half, and I'm back up and pacing. And then the fourth quarter, if it's a close game, I'm all over the place. I could be sitting, bouncing my knees. I could be pacing. That's how I think I'm an annoying football fan because I let the game and the outcome and the overall experience mean a lot more than it probably should.
I guess. I mean, I think my friends probably think I'm an annoying football fan because I am just so passionate about, like, hey, let's get together and watch football. And then we get together, there might be a card game going on, or there might be just like casual conversation, and I'll be in the background like, you stupid shit, reach for the first down. Why did you go out of bounds, you idiot? And they're like, oh yeah, there was a football game going on. And I'm just like sitting there yelling at the TV while they're just trying to have a conversation or whatever. So that's probably where I'm at with me being an annoying football fan because, or on Saturday, I brought two TVs out on our deck, both with Roku's, put some games on and was watching two games at the same time. And it's like, if any of my friends, like I put it on Instagram, but if like I asked my friends to do that, they'd probably be like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, we can just watch one game at a time, It's like, no. It's especially when there's a bunch of good matchups going on at the same time. So
Oh yeah,
I
I'm a big fan of the multi-screen. I think that was a genius move, especially like How often do you get beautiful weather like that where you can sit on
I
your deck
know.
and watch the games? I will say the one thing where I'm pretty good at is I'm not like an outburst anger type football
Oh
fan. Like
god,
people that
that's all I do.
throw pillows or scream obscenities. Like don't get me wrong, sometimes there's a little bit of swearing that occurs in the lighting household. Uh but again, I'm more of like a Debbie Downer, not an angry loss. I don't get angry. I just get sad.
I think
It's because I never
my
want it to end.
my swearing at the TV or whatever, if someone does something stupid, helps curtail any sort of blow ups that may happen when something goes wrong. So it's like a lot of like little minor overreactions, but then it's like, if I swear at Mitch Trubisky or whatever, like 30 seconds later, I'm over it, unless it's like a double doink type thing. But yeah. And as far as the putting the two TVs on the deck, we have a very small window to do that up north here. So, come October, we won't be able to do that. So I'm like, it's really nice out. We might as well just throw two TVs on the deck and see what happens. But yeah, the LSU game last night. So we're actually recording today on a Monday. We were celebrating Labor Day by working on the podcast. The LSU game could have gone a lot better in so many areas. I was very disappointed. I mean, I'm okay that we lost because we didn't deserve to be in that game one bit, but we looked awful on all sides of the ball. And our quarterback, Daniels, who it's his first start, transfer from Arizona State, he was productive. I did take a lot of issue with the fact that he would take the snap, he would make one read, and then if his read wasn't there, he just booked it. And it was like, he'd get 7 to 10 yards every time he scrambled. So I appreciated that we were getting some positive yardage, but we have a very talented receiving core. And to me, it's kind of like what we talked about last week with, if Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen ever lost the ability to run, they would still be elite quarterbacks. I'm not sure this guy would be a really good quarterback if he couldn't just bail himself out every game or every play with just a scramble. So hated that. Our offensive line looked terrible. So he didn't have too much support from our offensive line. They looked awful. Our secondary looked particularly weak. And obviously special teams let us down. I don't know if I need to tell you that, but our special teams was a joke. So I'm okay with that we lost because we were the worst team, but the way that we lost was particularly brutal.
Because of the vid, I didn't watch the whole game. I did a little napping on and off yesterday, but I saw the final 5 minutes or whatever it was when it was just total mayhem.
Which was the only
Uh,
part of the game that was relevant.
yeah, yeah. But I have to say the blocked field goal or extra point at the end, the pressure was oddly reminiscent of the blocked field goal that San Francisco blocked right before halftime of the divisional round game. Like the pressure came from almost the exact same spot. There was not a single hand that was put on the rusher. So for me, it just brought back, PTSD. We've talked about this playoff game way too much on these episodes. I need the Packers to do something else so I
I
can
know
like talk about other
you need the
games.
season to start.
I do. I
We
told
get
you.
to we get to do this all again
Ugh,
next year though when they choke again.
I know, and then it'll be a different game. Notice I haven't really talked about the Buccaneers game, um, but the thing that I loved about the game last night, and this seems to happen. I was trying to tweet about it on Thursday night, but I just never. I was too into the game I was watching. The amount of times that there are just insane college football games on about that time of night that I'm already laying in bed, but I have the TV on and I want to get excited, but I don't want to yell or like make noises. Again, not that I normally do, but sometimes when it's like crazy like that, you just want to be like, "Oh my god, that was crazy." Well, if Michelle's like sleeping or trying to fall asleep, I try to be quiet. So I cannot tell you how many times I've laid in bed just like silently fist pumping or like yelling at myself about how crazy these college football games are, or some of the Thursday night or Monday night, Sunday night NFL games. But I also connected the dots that I think half the time LSU is involved in these games. Because the other one that sticks out in my mind was the bowl game. What was that? The Tax Slayer Bowl, or which one was it? There was like 8 overtimes,
Oh no, that was just
or was that
that,
regular season?
that's your Black Friday slander game. That was
That's what it was. That's what it
Texas
was.
A&M. That was 2018, Joe Burrow's first year at
Yes.
LSU. I hated that game so much. That game should have ended, but we don't need to go on a tangent about that. But LSU should have won that. But I know what you're saying is that sometimes, and I particularly when it's a hyped up SEC team playing at night, there's usually something crazy that happens. So, but yeah, I'm all sad. And then it was still a really good college football weekend. There was a lot of fun games. I think to highlight a few, Appalachian State, North Carolina was particularly crazy. Some Mike McCarthy type clock management going on there by Mac Brown. So that was fun. Ohio State had a very good second half against Notre Dame and took care of business, which was expected, but they got off to a pretty slow start in the first half, especially CJ Stroud. It's getting a little nervous about our Heisman prediction. And I know it's just one game, but I already can tell that Bryce Young is going to have a really good season. So we might be in trouble on that one.
Yeah, I feel like Ohio State always starts kind of slow though. A couple
That's
years
true.
ago
They
they
did lose to
lost
Oregon at home, and yeah, I mean,
yeah,
there was much to be
and
said about
Virginia Tech
Brian
and
Kelly's
Virginia
first
Tech a
game.
couple years ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
there's
also true.
much to say about Brian Kelly's first game, but I don't think Notre Dame particularly looked amazing. They weren't supposed to win, but I don't think they looked. Their defense looked decent, except the defense is playing solid, and nothing over the deep middle of the field was open for CJ Stroud. And so when they get to like third and goal or whatever, what does Notre Dame do? They do a double safety blitz. It's like, what? Why did you think that was a good idea? So, anyways, uh, Florida held on against Utah at home, which was kind of a crazy upset. So I was pretty disappointed in that. I thought Utah was going to drive and score, and they throw a pick with like 20 seconds to go. So I hated that. Thank you, Utah, for nothing. Otherwise,
Thank
not too many ups. Arkansas beat Cincinnati, so that was pretty cool.
thank you Florida for giving me the dub in our college football predictions this week.
Yes, David got
I
one
just
wrong this
I
week.
think
I got two.
I think I just can't get behind Utah or really anyone from the Pac-12 yet and believe in them,
Absolutely not. I mean,
especially
especially
especially traveling
Georgia.
or especially traveling to an SEC uh, house.
Yeah, do you like? Well, Georgia just dismantled Oregon, which was not unsurprising in the slightest. But I love that they get to count that as an away game, even though it was in Atlanta. It's the best thing ever. So I still get 8 home games or whatever in Athens. So that's
Kind of
cool.
like LSU last night, though, right? That was technically an away game.
Was it? Well, didn't matter. Made no difference, unfortunately, because we still looked terrible. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I'd still tip the cap Florida State. They were the better team. They just kept LSU in it at the end with bad mistakes. But then they made up for it with their own triumph at the end. So corrections from our last episode before we get to our final couple news bits here. So we talked about Commanders running back Brian Robinson being shot. Wasn't quite sure where he was shot. He was actually shot 4 miles from the White House, and which is to the west, and 9 miles from FedEx Field, which is to the east. So definitely in the DC metro area. Philip Lindsay had also played on the Dolphins last year, so there wasn't another team that he was playing for. The player that the Bears waived that was their highest PFF ranking was actually Latavius Simmons with 92.7, and he was waived. So I don't know if the Bears don't believe in PFF, but again, like I said on the last episode, seemed like that's all Ryan Pace did, so maybe it's a good thing. And then the last correction to make was about Tyreek Hill and his. What we were under the assumption was he was leading the stats for the Chiefs every year. Since he came into the Chiefs in 2016, he only led the team in catches once, which was last year. And he only led in yards twice in 2017 and 2018. Otherwise, Kelsey leads in both yards and catches every season, with the caveat that Tyreek did miss 4 games in 2019 due to injury or suspension. I can't remember. But so yeah, actually, it's Kelsey that's kind of carrying the load there in KC instead of Tyreek. So maybe he might be onto something to be marginalized, although I still disagree with him.
No, I still can't get behind him.
Yeah. So the news items for the week, Russell Wilson for the Broncos, who was set to get a pay increase, got a pay increase. Now 5 years, 245 million with 165 million guaranteed, which is kind of important because that seems to indicate with his deal and Kyler Murray's deal that the whole Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed contract is not going to be a thing moving forward. I don't think that that's going to be something that other teams are going to try to do, which is probably a good thing for flexibility and whatnot because that contract is ridiculously stupid. But Russell Wilson, despite never playing it down for the Broncos, will be a quarterback for that team for at least 3 more years. And then the team gets flexibility to cut him for the final 2 years without any penalty. So now Wilson is the second highest paid quarterback per year behind Aaron Rodgers in the NFL. So any thoughts on that?
I wonder if Patrick Mahomes is regretting his contract now.
I was thinking the same thing when he signed that because he is under contract until 2032
Yeah.
at an average. I mean, he's 45 million a year, so don't get me wrong. I don't feel too bad for him, but at the same time, yeah, I think if they went with like a 5-year deal instead, that would have been a lot better for his situation.
Has, and pardon my ignorance, has Josh Allen gotten his extension yet?
Yes, he's at 43 million a year,
Okay.
and his deal becomes he becomes a free agent technically in 2029.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking who's going to be the next quarterback to kind of break into that echelon of salary. Because Kyler got his last year,
It'll probably be
or
Joe
not
Burrow in a
last
couple
year,
of
last
years.
month. Yeah.
Or yeah, I mean Joe and I think Tua came out the same time as Burrow did. Yeah, so it
Probably
depends on
Joe.
Tua's trajectory. Justin Herbert's going to need to get paid. I think Daniel Jones is a free agent this offseason, so it'll be really tricky to see what happens with him. And
He's just going to become a
then
high quality backup.
maybe, and then oh, like Lamar Jackson, obviously right now he's going to need to get paid.
But regarding Russ, I mean, well deserved, I guess. Um, I don't think last year you can really draw any conclusions from his season trying to come back from that bum thumb probably way too early. I'm just curious to see how he adjusts now to this new offense, new team. Uh, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has a great season.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk more about that here in a second on our AFC West preview. But yeah, good for him. And I like the flexibility the Broncos gave himself in the contract. So I think it's kind of a win-win there. So good job by them. The Bears picked up the Raiders' former first-round pick in Alex Leatherwood. They've claimed him and his contract, which is a little concerning. But if it works out, I guess I don't really care that they ate his contract. So for those who missed it, Leatherwood was a perennial player at Alabama, drafted by Mike Mayock and John Gruden at the Raiders, which is now a euphemism for a complete and utter failure if you were drafted by the Raiders during that time, because there's a 95% chance you're not on the team anymore if you got drafted by them. And sounds like they were mismanaging him. So, you could definitely make the argument that he was underperforming, but it doesn't sound like he was getting the best coaching along the way. So many argue that he was set up for failure by switching him around different positions on the offensive line instead of playing him at the position that he's supposed to play. So I don't mind taking the Bears taking a flyer on it. I think if it works out, I don't think people are going to care. And if it doesn't work out, it's a small cap hit anyways. So, it's not like we had a lot to lose. It's not like we're like Super Bowl contenders and that $2 million could have gone to like OBJ or something like that. So I'm not, what do you think? I'm not too bummed about it.
So because he was a first round pick, that means he's got 3 years left, and then the 5th year option.
Right. And because we claimed him on waivers, we have to take that on versus if he had
Yeah.
cleared waivers, we could have signed him to like a 1 year, $700,000 deal, but I don't think we wanted to take the chance on it.
So I don't think it's a terrible deal. There's a reason why guys get drafted in the first round, and I don't think 1 year is what causes them to be a bust. It is either A, multiple years of poor coaching and poor management by the organization of which they are brought into, or just a total miss on the actual draft pick. And in this case, it could have been a combination of both. So I guess the Bears kind of have a 50-50 chance of this one working out.
Yeah. So I'm fine with taking the risk. That's a good point that I didn't bring up. He's a first round pick last year. So that is almost, barring injury or legal issues, that's almost unheard of to cut a first round pick after 1 year. So we'll keep our eyes on that one for sure. See if he makes it into the team, because I think right now he's on the practice squad. And then the last kind of news item before we uh, weave off into our previews here, so check those episodes out when you can, is that the Eagles traded wide receiver Jalen Reagor to the Vikings for a 7th-round pick next year and a 4th-round pick in 2024. It's a conditional 4th-round pick. And so it's kind of funny because Jalen Reagor's the receiver that was taken one spot before Justin Jefferson in the draft a couple years ago, which was immediately scrutinized by a lot of people. And then obviously now we are at the point where Justin Jefferson's a top 5 receiver in the NFL. And Jalen Reagor is 4th on the depth chart now at the Vikings. So does this move make any sense to you?
I think from Minnesota standpoint, it makes perfectly good sense. Where's he going to fall? 3 or 4 on their depth chart? Probably
4th, probably
4th. And not that a 7th-round pick isn't worth anything because you oftentimes can get plenty for it, but I think a conditional 4th for Reagor is a very fair value. It'll be curious to see how being in potentially a better offense suits him. I know more times than not he was the reason why he looked bad, but maybe being around some more high caliber receivers and being paired back up with Justin Jefferson might be what his career needs to get a little jump start. I don't know. If the Packers were in the same position as the Vikings and they took a flyer on Reagor like this, I would have been a little excited just to see how it played out.
It'd been nice if the Packers did anything to address some of their receiver issues, but no, I guess, sorry, you guys signed Sammy Watkins. I'm sorry. But
who'd you rather have, Reagor or Sammy Watkins?
Reagor, are you kidding me? I wouldn't want Sammy Watkins on my team. But if it was 5 years ago, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I'm maybe not as optimistic about this move. I mean, they've done this a couple times with guys like Taji Sharp, or when they brought Randy Moss back for like 6 games towards the end of his career. They've done a couple moves like this where it just didn't. The receiver was traded for and then never did anything. So I'm not holding my breath for the Vikings, unfortunately. And then one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up here is the new broadcasting teams for the NFL. For the first time in a long time, there's actually a bunch of major shakeups with the kind of like the team ones of the broadcasting crews. So for like NBC, ESPN, CBS, and whatnot. So to recap, for those who've missed it, the new broadcasting team for NBC is Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth. So they're going to be the team one, and I'm 99% sure that'll be the duo commentating the opening night game between the Bills and the Rams, because that's on NBC. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo are still at CBS, and in my opinion, still the best crew out there. Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olson are stepping up to the crew number 1 for Fox. I love Kevin Burkhardt. He's amazing. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman moved to ESPN, so they were formerly the team 1 at Fox. They're now at the ESPN, so they'll be doing Monday Night Football. And then for the first time that I can remember, the Thursday night crew is now their own crew, and it's led by Al Michaels, formerly of NBC, and Kirk Herbstreit, the analyst for some of the perennial college football games, is also going to be doing these Thursday night games now. So any of those in particular that you love or hate?
I was just going to say when you mentioned Kevin Burkhardt, I love Kevin Burkhardt too. I think he's a tremendous announcer, and I think him and Greg Olson do a really nice job together. And I know apparently Tom Brady already has a contract written in blood that once he's out of the NFL, he's going to become, um, the color commentator for Fox, and likely would replace Greg Olson, which kind of makes me sad just because I thought he's done a really nice job too. So I'm really excited to listen to them more often. Um, because I think they do a great job. It's going to be bizarre not hearing Troy Aikman and Joe Buck calling the quote unquote America's Game of the Week on Fox, just because you're so used to that. I mean, it's been going, 20 years or so they've been on Fox together. I don't know the exact, but at one point they had Collinsworth in the booth with them in like the early 2000s. Um, and as far as the NBC crew goes with Tirico and Collinsworth, I know they announced a few games together last year, so I don't think that'll be too weird. Tirico, I think, does a really nice job, although he's made some questionable decisions in his personal life. Still a very good commentator, and I mean, I know a lot of people have their thoughts on Chris Collinsworth, but I don't know. He doesn't really move the needle one way or the other for me.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a hot take, but out of all the games in the week, I think the Monday night game is the game I could kind of take or leave, unless it's like a really good matchup. So the fact that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are on that now makes me really happy. I don't have to, because oftentimes the 325 game on Sunday for Fox is usually one of the top 5 teams in the NFC, and for the last decade, that pretty much has meant the Packers. And Joe Buck seems to have an affinity for the Packers, and so it's always really annoying to listen to him commentate a Packers game.
It's so
So,
funny you say that because everyone in Wisconsin thinks the opposite. They all think that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are out to get the Packers, and they have all this hate for Aaron Rodgers, which I think is so funny. Troy Aikman rubs me the wrong way sometimes, but I think Joe Buck is. I always thought Joe Buck was phenomenal. He just had a big
God,
game voice, and I never thought he was like a homer or anti-homer. Maybe that says more about me. I don't know, but
I swear
Packers
that
fans,
dude's got a full size cutout poster of Jordy Nelson in his house.
there is literally a Facebook group out there, or like a Facebook page that says Joe Buck and Troy Aikman suck, or like let's petition to get Joe Buck and Troy Aikman to stop commentating Packers games.
I agree, but
Well,
more because I'm annoying or I'm annoyed by that.
you have your wish, but yeah, Monday night games. I don't know. There's like no energy around them. I don't know if you've been to
It
a
was
Monday
just like
night game.
no, but it's also like I mean, I know it was the cool thing back in the day, but now it's just like like you just had a work day and there's only one game on, and oftentimes they tend to be somewhat irrelevant.
Yeah, because
So
did the NFL make a push a couple years ago to get every team to play a Monday night game?
yeah, which is what they did with Thursday night, and that's why it sucked because then you had to like fill a like a Patriots versus the Jets. It's like who wants to
Yep.
watch Tom Brady just beat the shit out of them? So, but yeah, Jim Nance, Tony Romo, still my favorite crew. And actually, my favorite, I don't know who your favorite NFL commentator is, if it's one that we mentioned, but mine's Ian Eagle. He is probably the most versatile commentator for any sport out there. I think everything he does, whether it's the Nets games or March Madness or football on CBS or whatever he does, I think he is simply stunning.
I think like I already said, Kevin Burkhardt's very good. Um, I also really like Kevin Harlan, who does the Westwood One radio stuff during the regular season, but he also does all the Packers preseason games. And I also think he's very versatile, just like Eagle. So Kevin Harlan's always a joy to listen to. And I would, of course, be remiss if I didn't mention Wayne Larrabee, who's the Packers Radio Network broadcaster, who prior
Yeah,
to
yeah,
his
move on.
job, no, well, prior to his job in Green Bay, he was the Bears play-by-play guy down in Chicago.
Don't care.
He's very good. He's very good,
I'm
and
not
he's
denying that. I don't have an opinion about that. I just radio, whatever. I'm
well,
like the anti-boomer.
fair, but yeah, never mind. Move on.
That was it. That's all we had. So if you are so compelled to, go check out our previews now. So again, starting with the AFC on day one and then followed by the NFC on day two. And we hope you enjoy.